Hello, 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 everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for joining us today. This is Premed Office Hours, episode 188, I believe. Hard to believe. I've been with the company now a few years now. We're up to 188. And I'll start by introducing us in a second. But yeah, this is Premed Office Hours with the Medical School Headquarters Advisors. We're down one team member. Dr. Ryan Gray is out today, so you have the pleasure of having us here running the show here. I'm Verinia Granum. I am a medical school admissions expert here with MSHQ, also formerly an assistant dean in the pre-health and STEM advising office at Hofstra University here in New York, where I am located. And with me is Dina Golini. I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dina. I'm one of the medical school admissions experts here at Medical School Headquarters, former senior MD admissions officer at Stanford Medicine, and assistant director of the S&P program at Brown's Alpert Medical School. So happy to be here today. Just two of us today.
I know. And a wealth of experience between the two of us. So we're happy to answer questions and help guide our listeners and our viewers here through this crazy process called the Premed process. So it's March 6th as of the date of this recording. Some students are probably thinking about applying, or they're getting ready to apply. So we're here to answer questions about the process. Go ahead and type your comments in wherever you're watching, and we'll be happy to help you out. Dina, what do you think this time of year students are really thinking about? What's like front and center about this?
I think for a lot of students who applied last cycle and are waitlisted, or they did not get any interviews, they're starting to think about applying again, and that's definitely very stressful, right? Very stressful to have to go through the process all over again. But you have to you have to think about reaching out to all your letter writers, getting ready for MCAS to open with your personal statement, your activities. And then for everyone who this is your first cycle, there's only a few months, I can't even believe it, before MCAS opens. And this is, I think, the time where a lot of students are stressing about getting MCAT scores back, finalizing personal statements, activities, etc. Don't wait until you get an MCAT score back to work on everything else.
Yes, 100%. I know we've been meeting with applicants. We've been kind of meeting with them during advising sessions, and a lot of the conversations have been around, hey, it's March now. I know you're nervous about the MCAT, but the best thing you can do is to set yourself up to be successful and manage this process and balance all the different things you need to do. So don't wait until you have your score, right? Think positively. Right. Assume it's all going to go well. And then in the meantime, prep also for your application. Okay. All right. So we have some questions coming in. Bear with me.
A lot of questions coming in. That's great.
So I'm going to go ahead and show them on screen, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah. Let's start with Dawa here. Dawa asks, hi, is it fine to get a LOR or letter of recommendation from a non-PhD professor? What do you think, Dina?
I think I need more context. It depends on what it is. Is it, is it a grad student who's the professor? Is it, I don't know. Yeah, I need more context here. What kind of course is it? Is it a science course?
Yeah.
Is it a humanities course?
There's a lot more information that we would need here. I think in general, so letters of recommendation, number one, first and foremost, you want to make sure that they're from someone who knows you very well, who can speak to who you are, to your characteristics, to your qualities, to your how your potential, right, to become a physician. So first and foremost, that's the one thing you want to definitely focus on. And then there are some rules around who should be writing these letters, right? You might want to you might see that some schools ask for 2 letters from science faculty and maybe 1 from a non-science faculty. So while we don't have that context here, I think generally what they may be asking is whether or not the letter writer has to necessarily be a doctoral level professor, and that's where we need that more context. Context. So Dawa, go ahead and let us know here in the chat. But for everyone else watching and listening, make sure that it is someone that can write you a strong letter of recommendation, and that's based on your relationship with them and how well they know you and how well you've known them. Thanks for asking, Dawa. All right, great question here from Adam. Adam asks, hello, if I want to purchase interview prep, is it possible to wait until interview season? Worried about purchasing prep and not getting an interview invite. So Adam seems like he's preparing well in advance, which I love. I don't think you need to necessarily wait until interview season. I think potentially we have sales occasionally. You may want to take advantage of that. And then if you don't get an interview invite, we can still potentially hold that package for you until the next cycle if you decide that you're going to apply. So I think it's fine if you want to purchase it now. Behind this though, like kind of thinking about this, I do want to recommend that students plan ahead. You may get an interview invite, especially now if you're still in this cycle. We're hearing from students who are getting interview invites, right?
It's crazy.
Dina?
Yeah. Just
sort of later.
Late this cycle.
Yeah. And it may just be
we're still doing mock interviews for this cycle.
Yes, and it may just be like a day's notice. So it's always good to have that in mind, that you might just have like a very short notice to get prepared for an interview. So it's great to plan ahead. Thanks, Adam. All right. Dina, so Vedant, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Vedant asks, hello, I've received a C+ in General Biology 1 course. Should I repeat that course? Great question here.
Yeah, I mean, so the key is, what did you get in courses, other upper level biology courses after that, right? Med schools, don't want to see C-. I think that the key is, do you have the foundation you need in the general bio to succeed in upper level bio courses, and also to take the MCAT? So if you feel like you have gaps in learning, see where you fell short with the C+ with the content, then you might want to take it again. But if that was like 2 years ago and you showed an upward trajectory where all your other bio courses were A's, then you showed improvement.
Yeah, good. Thank you. All right, let's see. We have here, oops, sorry. Go for it. All right, Brandon asks, would it be frowned upon to receive a postback degree from ASU online? So I'm not quite sure what ASU is. Is that Arizona State?
Maybe Arizona State.
Okay, if you could clarify, Brandon. I think maybe the question is around basically in general, is a postback, an online postback okay? So that's going to depend on a few things. Number one, you want to check and see. I think most medical schools are okay with online courses, provided it's from an accredited program. So you want to make sure, okay, yeah, so it is from Arizona State. You want to make sure that it is an accredited program. So it's, legitimate and that the coursework that you're taking are courses that are designed to fulfill pre-med requirements. And then, like I was saying before, a lot of schools do accept online classes, but you do want to do a little research and just look and see if some of the schools that you're interested in are okay with online courses. Like I said, I think the majority of them are okay with it. Some schools are still kind of on the fence about it. So I would do that. But other than that, I've had students pursue post-bac coursework through an extension program that have been very successful. They've been able to do it. You might, it's not a degree, right? It's a post-bac program. So you're not getting a degree from that. It's a certificate, essentially. You might want to look and see if they have opportunities to do some kind of coursework in person, just for that experience, to be able to have maybe some upper level biology courses, maybe some labs in person. If that's an option, I would take advantage of that. It's just a different experience if you're doing it in person. But it's okay if the entire thing is online, provided that the schools you're interested in accept those pre-med classes online, taken online. Well, good luck.
And
good luck, Brandon.
The other thing to think about too, in addition to what Verenia said, is if you are doing the postback program because you need letter writers, let's say you're non-traditional and it's been a while since you've been out of the classroom and you need some, letters from science professors. If you're doing it online, like, will you be able to form those close relationships where you're getting a good letter? Because as we mentioned before, you want letters from people who know you best and who know you well, who aren't just going to say they showed up, they did their work, they did a great job. That doesn't make for a strong letter. So just something to think about.
Yeah, good point. And it's hard sometimes to build that relationship when you're online.
Yeah.
All right. So Jared asks, what are some of the pros/cons of going to a brand new medical school like Frist College of Medicine in Nashville? Excellent question.
That's a good question.
It is a good question. So lots of things to consider. And Dina, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this as well. It's a little scary, right? Because it's a school, it's probably still provisionally accredited. You're taking a chance. First and foremost, do your research. Understand kind of where they are in that process of being accredited, and what resources they have for students as a brand new school. Oh, thank you. So we have a secret helper behind the scenes.
An elf helping us out.
A little elf helping us out behind the scenes. So
building the toys behind the scenes.
check out their website. Do the research. But what are some other things to think about, Dina?
I think just ask a lot of questions, right? Ask, where they plan to place you for clerkships. What kinds of opportunities are they going to look to, the student body to build? Like, are they building a student senate? Are they building, a flu clinic? Like, those are some of the pluses, because, right, like from the ground up, you can help build a program and be part of major changes in the medical school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point too. So it's exciting, but just it is a bit of a chance. I remember when Hofstra University opened up their first their medical school here in New York, and the first incoming class, and there was a lot of excitement around it, but a lot of questions, and in the end, it turned out just fine.
I'd say. I'd say.
Exactly. But do your research. All right, Jared. Great question. All right, Andrew B asks, hello. Hi, Andrew. I retook a pretty balanced 508. So their subscores were 128, 128, 126, 126, and scored a 515 on my retake. Fantastic. But the CAR score is lower. So given that CARS is very unbalanced, would this be a detriment? Not applying Ivy League. Okay. What are your thoughts around unbalanced MCAT scores, Dina? Is there such a thing?
I mean, definitely do your research. Some schools might come out and say, like, we want a certain CARS score at this number, or place a lot of emphasis on CARS. But again, sometimes it all depends on how the medical school is presenting your application in their system in terms of like the software system they're using. Does the reader only see your, your score and your GPA, and only if they open up like the PDF of your application would they see, all of the sub scores? Yeah, I mean, to me, the main overall score meant more to me when I was reading applications, but I think it's school dependent, and it just depends school to school.
I was just about to say that. Like everything in this process, it is school dependent. I know there are some schools that are very competitive in the cards is one thing that they're looking at, where like Emory, for instance, is one school where a 124 is not competitive. But to retake a 515, sorry,
Great
less than
score.
124. Less than 124 is so 124 is okay, but a 515, I would be comfortable telling that student, if that's the case, I might look at another school and not worry about that. And it's hard, like not every school will publicize that, so you can't really control that.
Exactly.
So don't just put it all on your MCAT score. Obviously, you want to make sure that your application is competitive all around, holistically. Thanks, Andrew. All right, let's see. Olga asks, I have very limited clinical hours, about 50 hours, but significant volunteer hours in a hospital in ER triage. Would this be enough? I've struggled getting hours from clinics and physicians. Great question. So is this
It depends what the volunteer hours are in ER triage, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Are you just stocking shelves in ER triage, or are you actually volunteering, patient transport or taking vitals? And in that case, that would be clinical volunteering. So it just depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, like everything else in this process, it depends, right?
Yeah.
And it is a struggle. It is a struggle, I think, getting shadowing opportunities and getting hours.
It feels like it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah, which is ironic, because these physicians have all been in the same spot. Keep pushing. There are plenty of ways. Clinical experience doesn't have to be paid. So if you get an opportunity to volunteer, broaden your kind of your horizon a little bit, look into hospice facilities, look into nursing homes and rehab centers where you can work directly with patients in some way. You can volunteer there if they're looking. Those are all valuable experiences to be around patients and gain some hours that way too. So this idea of, is it enough? Right? There's no set number of hours that's required, but this is a little bit on the lower side, because let's say that your volunteer hours are not directly working with patients. Can you say with 50 hours of experience that you understand what it means to be a doctor, to take care of another person's health? Right? It would be a little hard to kind of prove that point with just 50 hours of experience.
Right.
So,
and about 50 hours, that's a week, really. That's a
yeah,
full-time.
exactly.
My mind, the way it breaks down hours on an MCAS, it's like, okay, around 50 hours, that's literally like 5 days of work. That's like a week. So you spent a week in a clinical setting. So is it enough? Again, like Brittany said, just depends what you're, else you're doing with the triage, and can you demonstrate that you know what medicine is about?
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks. Hi, Jack. Jack says, as a TMDSAS applicant, so the Texas Application Service, retaking MCAT, and was wondering if marking that I'm retaking the MCAT would at least put my application on hold until I turn in my next score. So TMDSAS is a completely different application service. Texas does things a little bit differently. I don't know that it puts your application like on hold. I think they wait. Yeah. So I guess in essence, it does get put on hold because they will wait until that next score comes out. So yes, sorry. So I'm thinking on hold, like as a technical term, but yes, it will hold up the process. I think all application services, all schools will look at things the same way. If you're pending a score, they're going to want to see that score before they continue with reviewing your application.
Yes, this is a good question, because this is something with AMCAS that I bring up all the time. It was something I saw a lot in admissions at Stanford, that like there were applications just waiting for MCAT scores.
Yes.
And then there were a lot of applicants that decided they indicated, I am taking a future MCAT like in June, and then they never took it. And then they'd be, asking admissions, Why is my application marked as incomplete? Well, because you said you were taking the MCAT in June and you never went into MCAS and changed that. So just make sure that if you do take a future MCAT, you take it. And if you don't, you go back into your application, whether it's TMD, SAS, or MCAS, ACOMAS, and you remove it.
Yeah, good point. And I just want to make a slight clarification. So your application will still go through the process of getting verified, and it'll be processed, and it will be sent out to medical schools, but the medical schools won't
evaluate
anything, won't evaluate it until they have that other score.
Good point.
Thanks. Yes. Thanks, Jack. Yeah. All right. Any other questions coming in? Let's see. We have one from Jeffrey here. The child. Jeffrey, I have a 519 MCAT and a 3.9 GPA. Fantastic, Jeffrey. And I am only on one wait list for a new MD school. I was wondering if I should just focus on reapplying, especially as I want to go into academia. Okay, so Jeffrey, it sounds like you've applied this cycle. Fantastic stats, right? So clearly not an issue with your stats there, and you're on a wait list. Don't know if you interviewed, how that process went, how the interview went, but potentially there may be something going on with your application that wasn't necessarily related to your stats.
This is a great example of where we could help.
Exactly.
Right? We look at a lot we look at a lot of students who are in the same exact situation with really high stats and maybe did not get a lot of interviews or got a lot of wait lists this cycle and just want to know where they can improve to reapply. And we help take a look at your application. Our wonderful advising team, we can meet with you and just take an overview of everything, your personal statement, your activities, and give some advice as to where we think, you kind of fell short and what you should maybe change for this coming cycle. Because applying again, Jeffrey, but doing everything exactly the same might not work out. So where do you think you have a hole, or where did you fall short? Your question is, should I just focus on reapplying as opposed to what? Like, as opposed to holding out hope for the wait list? I think you got to do both at the same time, right?
And then they added, especially as I want to go into academia. I'm not sure how that relates here. Are you saying that you want to teach at some point in the future? That's sort of irrelevant at this point. It's more so if you're applying to medical school, right? The focus is on, okay, what do I need to do to be able to figure out like what happened this cycle, so that I can get into medical school the next time I apply. So that's what I would focus on. Thank you, Dina.
You're welcome.
Andres. Hi, Andres. I think Andres is one of our math users. I've chatted with him before. Hello, I'm pre-writing secondaries and having trouble starting. Amazing. Wow. He's already working on secondaries. How should I approach writing them? Should I try and tell stories or just directly answer the question? Thank you both. This is a great question, Andres. First of all, I'm excited that you're working on secondaries, right? We can't emphasize that enough. Pre-write secondary. So medical schools don't usually change their secondary prompts. If they do, they might change a few things here and there. But if you are pre-writing the bulk of them, you're saving yourself so much work down the road, right? So we have a data bank of questions and prompts that have been used in previous cycles. You can check that out. It's secondaryapps.com. Sorry, and you can see what the prompts are there, and you can start preparing your answers and start thinking about how you're going to approach answering these questions. So each medical school has its own set of questions. You can easily have 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 different prompts, all of varying lengths. So if you're applying to 20 medical schools, you can easily write up to 200 essays. So it's a lot. This is where pre-writing helps. So let's say you pre-write, something changes, you've pre-written half of them. Now you only have a few more to do or to tweak. That's fine. But to answer Andres's question here, how should you approach writing them? So we emphasize in your personal statement and in your activities to tell a story, to talk about an experience that you had with a patient, to show how that patient helped motivate you and encourage you and pushed you on this path. With secondaries, that all goes out the window. The whole point of your secondaries is to just focus on what they're asking in the prompt.
Answer the prompt.
And answer the prompts. Don't worry about telling a story. And Dina, I'm going to let you weigh in. I've worked with students who go off on a tangent trying to tell a story, and it just sounds a little strange and it comes across a little awkward because you're not answering the prompt.
Right. I mean, it could be prompt specific though. Like a prompt could say,
True.
you know, discuss a time where your most meaningful encounter with a patient, and you could tell a story around that. But for the most part, just answer the prompt.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are school specific, right? This is where it gives schools a chance to hear your voice, but to also hear why you're a good fit for their school. So this is where you want to do your research and you want to read their mission statement, their vision, look at their curriculum, look at the surrounding community, and just make sure that it's specific to that school. Also, make sure you proofread, because I have seen students who try to cut and paste and reuse answers, and they use another school's name in, the answer for another school. And just make sure that if you could say, for example, have pre-written a general kind of diversity answer that you're finding a lot of schools are asking the same prompt about, that you're trying to reuse, but just make sure that it's specific to that school.
Yeah, and proofread. We work with applicants. We offer essay feedback services, and we can look at secondaries for you and with you and send you back feedback. And I can't tell you how many times I've written back comments and pointed out, hey, don't forget to change the name of the school here. You put the wrong school here. So overall, first and foremost, read that prompt. If a story fits, then maybe you can share it. But mostly just focus on answering the prompt.
Yes. And also know your last thing. If a school is saying what type of specialty or what type of physician do you envision yourself becoming? If you're saying primary care, I really want to be part of a primary care track or something, and the school doesn't even have a strong primary care prep program, just make sure that what a school offers.
Good point. All right, so Maimuna, I guess. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. What would be the latest MCAT month you would recommend for retaking the MCAT if you want to apply this cycle? Oof, this is a tough one. Do you want to take a shot at it, Dina?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to do what's good for you, right? And the number one thing is you have to take the MCAT when you're ready. That you're doing yourself a disservice by taking the MCAT when you haven't prepped for it and you don't feel prepared. So that's number one. Make sure that you are ready, because you don't want to have to retake it, right? But for this cycle, going into the cycle, applications open in May, you're able to submit the end of May. You ideally want to have a score before you submit. So I would say April. To me, April would be the latest. You can take it after that. However, just know that it's going to set your application back a little bit. And then you're running into, that traffic jam of applications in the middle of June, where it might take you 6 weeks to get verified before you get some secondaries. And then if you want to retake it, if you're not happy with your score, you're setting yourself back even more. Yeah. If you have anything to add, Verinia, just take it when you're ready.
Take it when you're ready. I mean, at this point, a test date in April, you have to look and see if there's seats available somewhere. You may have to travel to take it somewhere else, and that might impact how you do on the test itself. I think that if you find that you are comfortable with this, some students, what they do is they'll apply to one school without the MCAT score just to start the process at least and get their application verified. And then, they'll get their score later and then the application gets reviewed later. But at least the verification process happens, right, while you're waiting. So that's something you might want to consider doing. I would suggest, though, if you're going to do that, if it's that you apply to a school that you would be willing to go to if you were accepted, that it's not like a throwaway school that you're not interested in going to. So that's another strategy that students sometimes do. But more than anything, apply when you're ready. So, sorry, take the test when you're ready. If that means you have to wait another cycle, then you wait another cycle. Just some thoughts.
Yeah.
All right. Raccoon 1. I have an undergraduate GPA of 2.71, and now I am in a master's in MS. So MS can mean many
Medical
things.
sciences.
Medical sciences. Okay. With a 3.86 GPA. Went from a 508 to a 510 MCAT, but was wondering if I should retake for a 515 score. Or is it a red flag if I retake and not end up hitting a 515? So 515 or plus. So I can say this, Raccoon. I think a 510 MCAT is fantastic.
Yes.
It is a competitive score. The AAMC, I think, recently released their 2023 applicant matriculant data, and I saw really briefly average MCAT score for the 23 matriculants was a 509. So what does that tell us? That it's not, the MCAT score is just one part of your application. So the 515 is not necessarily what's going to get you into medical school. It's what you've done. You went from an undergraduate GPA of a 271 to a 386 master's level GPA, which is fantastic. And your MCAT score is in a competitive range. So look at the other things that you have going on in your application, your activities, your extracurriculars, your patient care, your clinical, that kind of stuff. Focus your energies on that, making sure that is also substantial and looks good, ready to apply. Don't worry about hitting that 515. I don't think
agree.
you need it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well said.
Agreed. And good luck.
And good for you getting your 3.86 in your master's and going up. That's no small feat.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Fantastic. All right. Saeed asks, does working with special needs kids as a personal support worker count as clinical work? Is it clinical? We always get one of these.
Good question. Yeah. I guess it would depend on what you're doing, right? Are you, back in the day when I worked in a high school, there were many special needs kids that I worked with, but that doesn't mean that it was clinical, right? A lot of them had aides who traveled with them most of the day, who took care of clinical things like, just dressings and going to the bathroom and feeding and medications. And so if you're doing stuff like that, that's different. If you are just accompanying them in some way or helping them in a way that doesn't have to do with their care, then it wouldn't be. I wouldn't think so. I don't know what you think, Verinia.
I agree with you. It depends on what you're doing. I know some support, like they'll provide medication, they'll administer medication or feeding or, taking them to the bathroom. I mean, that potentially, maybe you can consider that patient care experience. But it really will depend on what it is that you're doing with the child.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So Jack is asking now with a follow-up question. Sorry, but just to clarify, for TMD SAS, I wouldn't get screened out early for my low MCAT score as long as I mark that I'm retaking it. They will wait for my new one before rejecting. So Jack, your application is not going to get rejected like straight off the bat just based on your MCAT score. If they see that you're taking the exam again, that you're retaking it, they will wait for that score, provided you've gone through whatever other screening procedures they have in place. So it really depends on the school. Maybe there's other things in your application that they'll consider. Okay, you're not meeting that criteria, so we do have to screen you out. So that's going to depend on each school. I would say don't worry about it. You can't control that, right? Just
Right.
focus on submitting, making sure that you're putting that you're retaking that the test and the date that you're taking it on there when you submit. Okay.
Yeah, again, Jack, if you're listing a future MCAT date, then that means your application is not going to be evaluated because to schools it's not complete because you've told them it's not complete.
Right.
You've said, hey, I'm taking a future MCAT. You need to wait for that score, and they won't evaluate your application until they receive that.
Okay. All right.
I love this question.
So Emily asks, is it necessary for me to have all 15 activities on the MCAS? I have a solid 8 or 9. Dina, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I know Dr. Gray would say you don't have to have all 15, and you don't. It's okay to have a few short, but this is what I'll say. When you are on the admission side and you are reading applications all day long, and let's say I'm reading 50 applications, okay, and 49 of them have 15 activities. And then I get to one out of all 50 that has 8. It looks short to me, right? It appears short. It appears like there's just less activity, less involvement, and depending on the software system that a school uses to pony over all the info from AMCAS and how they divvy up all the information on their end, like here are all the experiences, here's all the volunteer work, here are hobbies, here's this. It's going to just visually not look like you have as much as others. Now, should you take up the other 6 or 7 slots by just randomly filling them up with something? No. Maybe you have some like depth of experience with an organization where you were in 2 roles, where you were like a leader or a mentor and a volunteer, and you could split that up. But I think the 8 is for me, it's glaring that there's not 15. That's just how I feel. Like I literally, like it's a little like PTSD. I literally remember some of the applications I read that had like 3 or 5. And like some of the entries were like Dungeons and Dragons as a hobby, or like it's you.
Yeah, that's different.
When you're reading so many applications, it just,
it's glaring.
It's glaring. It just looks short. So
yeah, and I think you prove the point too that it varies by school. It could vary between admissions officers or folks that are reading evaluators, right? So we have different opinions even here on our team on how many activities one should have, but I think at the end of the day they need to be valuable, and yes, it's going to be glaring if you have 5 and someone else has 15. So valuable meaning that they're meaningful to you, that you have participated in a significant way and not just play Dungeons and Dragons or something.
Yes. And then also this question has come up in some advising sessions lately with me, and there were students I've worked with who didn't even know that they could count, let's say a club that they were involved in on their college campus, or let's say like a neuroscience foundation they were a part of or something. They were like, oh, I didn't even know that I could include that in my activities. It's an activity, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
My suggestion would be, before you jump in and just put the solid 8 or 9, look at the 19 categories that you're able to categorize your activities as in AMCAS. And you might read one, say like social justice and advocacy, and be like, oh, I was involved in something that could fall under that category. So now I have 10. Yep. Maybe it'll just jog your memory as to something that you did do that you're not thinking of.
Yes. And I've had candidates who have worked for a summer somewhere, or maybe, had just a regular job, and they don't think to include that. That's part of your history, right? And you learned lots of things from working, as a server at a restaurant, how to deal with people, how to resolve conflict and situations and things like that. So that's also experience you can put on there. It's not just clinically related stuff. Keep that in mind.
Yes.
Great question, though.
Yeah, it was a really good question, Emily. Yes. And some, this will be the last comment for this, I promise.
That's okay.
There are some students who, to take up room, like let's say they've shadowed 6 different doctors, they'll list shadowing 6 times. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Like, just don't
Yeah.
do that. But all of your experiences, even like Verenia said, even your employment, it helps shape who you are.
Yeah.
And schools want to see who you are.
Thank you.
Welcome. Even if
Very
it's
well said.
Dungeons and Dragons.
All right, Adam is back. Question.
Hi,
One
Adam.
of my research activity entries is very limited. 3 months and dedicated around 30 to 40 hours. Main reason being I disliked the experience. Is the short time span a red flag? So I'll weigh in on this one. To me, the time is not the red flag. We have students who participate in activities for a short amount of time, and they get what they get out of it, and that's okay. And you can talk about that in your application. What I would ask myself is, if I disliked the experience, do I want to put this on here just to fill in the 15 slots like we were talking about just now? If it's not an experience that you felt connected to, you had a terrible time working there, whatever it was, you may not want to put that on here. Don't just put it just because you want to show that you had research experience. Or you can try a different tack. You can include it and then try to talk about it in a positive way. But it sounds to me like you really, didn't enjoy it. You were only there for 3 months because you didn't enjoy it. But that's okay. I mean, you did it. Maybe you learned something, you got something out of it. So you could include it and just focus on the positive things. The short time span is not a red flag.
Well said. Don't write it up in a negative way. Don't write it. If you do use it, don't say, I hated this experience. It was the worst experience I've had. I learned nothing. Just try to be positive.
Exactly. And if you can't say anything nice about it, then don't say anything at all. Yeah. The golden rule.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Hi, Anna. Anna asks,
Hi, Anna.
I'm working full-time in research and have started a postback program. Will AdComs look at my application unfavorably if they see that I only took 1 or 2 classes at a time? What do you think, Dina? When you were looking at applications, did you notice that? Was that a red flag?
No, I think the bigger question here is, like, do you need the postback program to demonstrate, success in, graduate level courses or higher level courses, or are they prereq courses that you needed to really make a dent in your application? So is it worth waiting to apply? If you're taking the postback, but it's not necessarily something that you needed to make or break your application, I don't think the 1 or 2 classes at a time, is a negative thing.
Right.
I'm more concerned with, like, I'm just thinking back to my time at Brown for that SMP program, and students who were applying while taking the program would list the courses they were enrolled in for the fall, and then the courses that they would be enrolled in for the spring. So even though they haven't taken them yet, schools could still see them. So as long as you're listing those courses on there and schools know that they're upcoming, I think that's all that matters. But if you need it, for GPA or experience, then you might want to wait.
Yeah.
Just need a little more context.
I think a lot of times students, particularly Anna, who's working full time, they worry about how it's going to look. And the reality is they can see on your application, because you're going to put on your application what you're doing, that you're working. They're going to see that you're working full time. So there is context for it. So 1 or 2 classes, I don't think is necessarily a red flag. So I think what you were saying, though, Dina, is important. Just put what you're taking, what you're planning to take, and do the best you can in it. Good. Thanks, Anna. Okay. Grace Lee asks, I got my MCAT from January and my CARS score is much lower than the rest. So got a 126. I am planning to apply this cycle. Should I retake it? I have another one scheduled for 26 just in case. All right. So we were just talking about this.
Yeah, we were just talking about this, Grace.
the impact of sorry, the impact of the CAR score. That might be school specific. Some schools may have a cutoff where below a certain amount, a certain score is not competitive. I think with this score, I think that's what that banner was showing. Kind of the overall score being a 516. Grace, I think you're fine.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I think go ahead. Don't worry about the retake. Focus on the other aspects of your application. Don't put yourself through that headache and then potentially risk a lower score. Like, no, you're good. What do you think, Dina?
I agree. Just like with the previous student
Exactly
who wrote in. Yeah, I think you're okay.
Let's see. Any other questions? Quiet day today. Okay, this one's coming in from a Facebook user.
Long one.
Yeah, it looks like it's a parent. So we have some parents that also check in with us. Son is a freshman and looking into clinical work and also volunteer opportunities. He will probably scribe and then potentially also volunteer as CMA, Spanish translator at a free clinic. He's also looking into volunteering as a hospice volunteer. However, he says he needs non-medically related volunteering. He's all set for shadowing hospitals, just not sure about the non-med volunteering. Okay, great question. So when you were looking at applications, Sina, were you looking at kind of the depth and the breadth of their experiences, or how did you view medical volunteering and non-medical or community service types of experiences?
I think that for some schools, especially, service is a huge component in their curriculum, in their mission, and they want to see that you have been involved with communities in different ways. So I think that everybody needs service in some capacity on their application. Having service that's both medical and non-medical is even better, right? And what could that look like? It could be like volunteering with hospice and then volunteering at a food pantry, right? That's, non-medical. So I think that it's just, your exposure. And then, like we were saying before, like the depth and the breadth of those experiences. When you think about it this way, the more that you experience, the more you have to write about, right? The more you have to write about in your activities, in your personal statement, in your secondaries, the more you have to talk about in your interviews. So, just demonstrating that you have a knowledge of what communities need, especially, communities that are underserved, maybe have lack of access. I think that it's important for med schools.
I agree. And I think more than anything, what I've heard often from medical schools admissions folks is that they're looking for a passion. When they're looking at your application, they're looking at, did you explore the field? Did you figure out why you want to do this? But also, what else have you done? And are you passionate about that? So find experiences out there that not necessarily medically related, that will help you kind of grow and develop that passion and things that you're really excited about or passionate about helping out. If you see a need in your community, it could even be just, for instance, I worked with an applicant who, on top of everything else that she was doing, loved working with animals. And so she would volunteer at her animal shelter, her local animal shelter. And that she wrote so beautifully about that because it was something she was passionate about, had nothing to do with medicine. So that's what I'm saying. Make sure that your son is exploring the things that he likes, that he's particularly passionate about, that he wants to change or see a change in, not medically related. That is going to shine in the application, because that's what medical schools want to see. Show them what you care for, what you care about, and how you want to change it or make a difference in some way.
Well said.
Good luck.
And I'll add one more thing. Schools also want to know that you are going to contribute to their community. There's a lot of service involved and intertwined in a medical school curriculum. So to see that you have no volunteering and no service within a community, and then to take you on, there's no guarantee that you would contribute to their own community.
Yeah.
So
good point.
keep that in mind.
Good point. All right, so Luis here asks, I got my first couple interview invites a few days ago, and I am uber excited. Congratulations, Luis. This is exactly what we were talking about, that we're still seeing candidates getting interview invites.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. So the question is, how do I not over prep or overdo it, since I have a lot to share with my interviewer? I love this question. Congratulations, Luis.
Congrats.
We actually can help with this. We offer interview prep, mock interview sessions. You can meet with any one of us on the team and practice. There's no such thing. I don't think there's a way to over prepare. I think what can happen is that students sound rehearsed because they've memorized what they want to say instead of just trying to be natural. And that's something that we talk a lot about, just treating this as a conversation. Yes, it's a medical school interview. Yes, it's high stakes. But knowing yourself, knowing your application, and just being yourself, and remembering that this is a person that you're going to be talking to on the other end, and treating it like you're really genuinely wanting to get to know them and they want to get to know you, is the best way to approach it. So practice, pace yourself. I think the best way, and Dina, please weigh in, the best way to prepare is to record yourself. So, get a list of questions that are traditional, kind of typical questions you might be asked at an interview. We have a data bank of questions. We have an interview question generator on our website. If you go to the medical school headquarters website, you can find that there. Set it up, set yourself up to, set up your phone to record yourself answering those questions. That's the best way to practice, and just try to hear how you sound, record yourself, trying to keep kind of a natural tone and voice throughout it all is the best way to prepare. Yeah. Dina, do you have any other tips?
Yeah, I mean, you did a great job. That's great advice. I think for some students with the broader questions, like tell me about yourself, why medicine, breaking that down into like, what are like the 3 main points or the 4 most important points that you want to get across, right? Bullet point it out on a Post-it. Just practice that over and over so that you don't go off on a tangent and you're not oversharing. And it kind of like reins you in. Like, these are the things that I, in this order that I want to discuss and I want to share, and that might help you.
Yes. And good luck.
Good luck. It's great.
So exciting. All right. Let's see. Looks like we're at
those are all our questions.
All of our questions today. Well, great. Yeah. So this is a lot of fun. I know we were missing Dr. Gray. We were missing Dr. Gray, but I think we did okay. Glad everyone was able to join. Stay positive if you're still in this cycle. As you can see, Luis is getting interviews. You're welcome, Luis. To go through this, if you're currently in your cycle, check out our mock interview packages. You can use the code PMOH to get a discount on some of our packages there. And if you're thinking of applying, check out our resources there as well. We'd be happy to help you out in any way that we can. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Some great questions today.
Yes. And thank you, Dina, for being a fantastic co-host.
Oh, you're welcome. Right back.